guys, it's Paige Poppe. Welcome back to my channel. So I asked you guys for video requests, and one that I've gotten in the past is what are my favorite podcasts to listen to while I work. And they also did ask what I listen to in general while I work. I thought I would focus this video just on podcasts and then talk about other things in the future, but for now I thought I would give you my favorite podcast recommendations. So I've got my iPhone here in my prickly Prism phone case. I know I've talked about podcasts on my channel in the past, but I have quite a few new ones that I've been enjoying and thought I would share. As you can see, I've got quite a few on this list here. I might not have a chance to talk about every single one, so if I leave any out, I will just put a list in the description box, but I will talk about my favorites in this video. And right before we get started, I will just say, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Paige Poppe. I am an artist, so I listen to a lot of podcasts because I'm at home here in my studio space working by myself. Podcasts are really good to listen to while I paint, but they're a good way to fill the noise, learn something new, learn about business and creativity. So let's jump in. First up, I'm going to talk about a podcast by a couple of my friends. It is called Creative Biz Rebellion. It is by Kelly and Caroline. They are both Etsy shop owners, so there is a lot to learn from them, not only about Etsy, but at small business in general. I might be biased to this podcast because I was on it once, but I swear I listened to it not for that reason. I listened to it because it is very good. So they talk about Etsy strategies. They interview small business owners like Julianne Art or Emily Lay. Those are pretty big names in the paper goods industry. They will talk about managing your money, wholesale, Instagram, planning, prepping your shop for Christmas, all kinds of good stuff. Honestly, they answer a lot of the questions that I get from you guys, so they're one of the best recommendations I can give. Okay, this is a great one. Creative Pep Talk. I have to include this because you guys actually recommended it to me in the comments. Whoever that was, thank you, thank you. It was a few months back. This podcast is by Andy J. Miller, or Andy J. Pizza, who is a professional illustrator. And you guessed it, this is like creative pep talks, but they're not just like him motivating you. They are him really talking about the business of creativity, staying on the grind, you know, what you can do to pimp out your portfolio is the best way I can describe it. Interviews other creatives. I think a lot of podcasts go back and forth between the host giving advice and then the host asking other creatives for advice so that he can mix in a lot of perspectives. He actually did just release a book too called Creative Pep Talk, and this is 129 episodes in, so you're guaranteed to find something to listen to. He'll talk about how to fight creative block, how to find your flow, why your marketing isn't working, just a lot of good tips. And what I have found with these podcasts, I have found that any podcast I listen to, no matter where you're at, the podcast might be a few steps ahead of you or a few steps behind you, but usually across the episodes, you're gonna find something to have value with, so they are good to listen to. All right, next up, I do think it is important to have a few podcasts in your mix that are not related to your industry. I think personally, if I listen to too much business or art or creativity content, it kind of gets overwhelming. And I'm a strong believer that at a certain point, you have to stop listening to advice and just do the work. So a lot of times, if I've already listened to a lot of, you know, businessy content, I'm in the mood for something just kind of mellow. So one that I love is Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin. So Alec Baldwin is the host of this, and you might think like, oh, like a celebrity podcast, like why is that good? But he is an excellent speaker and an excellent interviewer, and the episodes cover all different kinds of people that he interviews. Everyone from the founder of Starbucks to a lot of different SNL personalities like Kristen Wiig. Her episode was really interesting. He also interviewed Sarah Jessica Parker, Dustin Hoffman, Jimmy Fallon, all kinds of good ones. And I think him being on the same level of celebrity as a lot of these people enables him to really get eye to eye with them and ask them questions that maybe someone who hasn't had those experiences wouldn't feel comfortable asking. So I think that's kind of the key of why this is so good. And the episodes are anywhere from like 35 minutes to an hour, and I'm always bummed when they're over. So this is a good one just to change up the mix. And then I will add another one to the mix that is just kind of light. I mean, it's not necessarily light, but it's not business oriented. It is more storytelling. I am super into any NPR podcasts. So there's Ask Me Another, This American Life, Serial was amazing. I'm sure you guys know that. And then S-Town just came out March 28th. I listened to all of it in 2 days. Like, I think the day it came out or like the week it came out. Highly recommend it. Definitely is not what you expect. Definitely is a very good story. It's the best way I can describe it. It's a good story. It's a cool story, a story that, you know, kind of was told through happenstance, but it's a story that I think needs to be told. Just a very spontaneous. So I highly recommend that, and I'm not going to give anything else away. Speaking of NPR podcasts, I left one out on that list, and this is a business oriented one, but I've been loving it. It is How I Built This with Guy Raz. I'm not really sure who Guy Raz is, but he's the host. And I learned about this podcast from Mimi Icon's recent favorites video on her channel. And she mentioned that some of the interviews were like with the founder of Patagonia, I believe, and I forget who else she mentioned, but it was enough that I was kind of intrigued. So I listened to the Kate Spade episode, the Kendra Scott episode, Instagram founders. This morning I was listening to one with Barbara Corcoran, who's one of the Shark Tank hosts and like a real estate mogul, and her episode was really good. Basically, they interview high level successful people. Like, you can tell the names I've said, Kate Spade, Kendra Scott, it's big people, but they're talking about how they built their company. Very fascinating how many of them got kind of I mean, definitely not glamorous starts. They all had some struggles in the beginning. A lot of them made something out of nothing, which is really fascinating. I almost kind of wonder if that's like the underlying theme of the show. They don't really explicitly say that, but they are talking about how people got things off the ground. Not gonna lie, when I listened to a couple episodes last week, like back to back, I started crying toward the end. Like, just, I teared up a little bit, not like sobbing, but their stories were very inspirational. And I felt like it was just a good encouragement to keep working hard for the future, and I really liked the motivation and the inspiration behind it. So really recommend that podcast. Okay, and I could go on. I have a couple that I'll quickly mention that I'm pretty sure I've talked about in the past, but they are Make It Happen by Jen Carrington. I was on this podcast, so I'm biased again, but it's really quite good. Her tagline is a podcast for curious, big-hearted, purpose-driven creatives. Jen is a creative coach herself, so if that sounds like you, I think you'll enjoy this podcast. I'll just quickly touch on that one because I've talked about it before. Another one, if you need Etsy tips or handmade shop owner business tips, is the Merriwether Counsel podcast run by my friend Danielle. Very good and short and sweet. The episodes are like 7 minutes long, so if you don't have time for that, I don't know what's going on, but you should have time for it, and I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, lastly, I'll talk about one more, and then a bunch others will be in the description box. This one is the Gold Digger podcast by Jenna Kutcher, and I was not familiar with Jenna Kutcher's work until recently, and come to find out she's like this huge name that all these people know about. But Jenna is someone who was a wedding photographer and has really built an online education resource business, and I kind of like pull what I can from her content because some of it is kind of geared toward photographers. A lot of her courses are geared toward photographers. She also is in the position of being an online educator, and that's not what I consider myself to be. I'm more concentrating on art making rather than art teaching. So I think that this goes for any podcast to kind of like take what you want from it, just like here and there. But she does share some really good, valuable insight, and I like who she interviewed. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not really her target listener, and her style of speaking is like a little bit different than mine, but I cannot deny that there has been a lot of good, valuable info in this podcast. And you know, give it a listen for a few episodes. It might not be for you. I have some friends who love it and some friends who don't, but I think it might be good to listen to and see what you can get from it. Some episodes are very like focused and action-packed, like 5 common mistakes you're making on your website. And I feel like sometimes you can see a title like that and the people don't actually give you like that good of advice, but her advice is pretty straightforward, which I appreciate. She's sharing a lot of value, so I recommend that one. All of these are good to at least listen to for an episode or 2 and see what you think, and I hope that gives you a good start for moving forward. I hope you guys enjoyed all those recommendations. If you end up listening to them and love them, let me know by leaving a comment down below or even sending me a DM on Instagram. And I probably should do this video about every 6 months because it seems like I'm always finding a new podcast to recommend, and there are a few others on here that I kind of pick up here and there but aren't my absolute favorites, but I'll remember to add more as it goes on. So thank you guys so much for watching and happy listening. Like I said, if you are new here, welcome. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to have you as a subscriber here on my channel. I am currently doing the 100-day project, which means I am doing 100 days of videos, which is crazy. We're about 20 days in, a 5th of the way. It's taken a long time, but it's been fun. So if you'd like to stick around for, you know, 80 some more days of videos, I'd love to have you here for that. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot, and it also allows other people to see this video and learn about cool new podcasts. So I'll wrap it up for now. Until my next video, I'm sending all of my positive and creative vibes your way, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.